A very good afternoon and welcome to Africa Trade Brief. Today we'll be taking a look at trade in fake goods. Now, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said the value of imported fake goods worldwide, based on 2016 customs seizure data, was $509 billion. Trade in fake goods, which range from medicine to luxury goods and food, take money away from companies and governments and is estimated to reach over 59 trillion rand by 2022. Let's take a look at some of the most counterfeit goods from the OECD. That's from about 2016. We know that there's always a lag in data. Footwear being some of the most counterfeited goods, followed by clothing, leather goods, electrical equipment, watches, medical equipment, perfumes and cosmetics, toys, jewelry, and pharmaceuticals and other industries are there as well. So in 2013, the World Health Organization said at least 100,000 deaths a year are linked to the counterfeit drug trade. Particularly prevalent on the African continent is fake medicine. The OECD says trafficking and the sale of fake or defective medicines is enriching criminal groups and endangering health while draining away vital industry and tax revenues. So the most counterfeited pharmaceuticals there as well, antibiotics, second in line, male impotence pills, followed by painkillers, anti-malaria pills, diabetes treatment, heart disease treatment at 3%, dietary supplements at about 3% as well, blood pressure treatment, local anesthetics, cancer treatment, stomach ulcer treatments, all of those pharmaceutical goods being counterfeited, and those are the most counterfeited pharmaceuticals according to the OECD. So let's take a look now at what the economic impact of this is. It's projected that counterfeiting and piracy will drain $4.2 trillion from the global economy by 2022. We'll be speaking to the people who created these graphics a little bit later on in the show. And so when it comes to counterfeit, nothing seems to be off the page. Medicines, food, luxury goods, alcohol, tobacco, all counterfeited across the world. Hundreds of thousands of lives are lost every year to fake and substandard products. That's what we just showed you from the World Health Organization as well. And counterfeiting and the illicit trade remain a major source of financing of criminal, terrorist and disruptive organizations, and are a major enabler of corruption there. So the OECD has also said that rapid growth in free trade zones is, and I'm quoting here, unintentionally fostering growth in counterfeit goods trafficking. So, of course, the latest free trade zone that we know is the African Union's Africa Continental Free Trade Area. One company is working with the AU on this, Original. Patrick McGee, who's the Managing Director of Africa, joins me now. But before we go that, let's take a look at how fake trade increases with more free trade zones, the value of counterfeit and pirated exports in there, and the number of zones, and you see the graph going up there. So let's speak to Patrick McGee, the Managing Director of Original Africa, joining me now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Give us some context into the extent of trade when it comes to fake goods on the African continent.
Thank you, Nzinga, and thank you for having me on the show. So first, when we talk about counterfeiting, let's be clear that it is a global problem. And experts estimate that this industry, as you mentioned as well, run by criminal networks, is reaching over $4 trillion a year. To put this into perspective, it would be the equivalent of the GDP. So let's say if these fake products would be a country, it would be basically the fourth economy in the world, tailing Germany and taking over Japan's position. In Africa, we can easily estimate that fake goods and counterfeiting represents over $1 trillion. And over the years, counterfeiters have been using Africa as a real playground and taking advantage of some of the loose regulations, especially in terms of the trade. Consumers and users of these products really need to have the right to be able to verify the authenticity of products. And that is where we come in as Original, where we have developed an app that will be able to authentify products with a simple capture of code bars and unique identification codes. And you'll be able to really differentiate fake from real.
Patrick, give us some insight into the kind of trends that we're seeing when it comes to counterfeit goods on the continent.
Yeah. So when we talk about counterfeiting, I think people will immediately think of counterfeiting in the luxury area. So thinking of luxury goods like bags and watches. But actually, when we look at it, the most faked goods and the most faked products are all part of the FMCG sector, the fast-moving consumer goods. A large range of products, as you mentioned, quite a few of them, that are faked and counterfeited are actually pharmaceutical products, food products, baby formula, alcohol, carbonated and caffeinated goods, sugary drinks, and mineral water. Basically, the everyday product that we're taking in our everyday life has the potential of being counterfeited. As you mentioned, WHO, in their latest report on health in Africa, estimates that just in sub-Saharan Africa, we're looking at 116,000 children that die every year from counterfeit malaria medicine. And that's taking into consideration that these are only what is reported to the WHO. In addition to that, in some of the West African countries, we're looking up to 70% of pharmaceutical drugs sold there that are fake. And we can imagine, again, that these numbers are much higher because we're not able to control all of that at the moment. And just as a few examples of what has been happening in the past year or so, especially since COVID-19 hit, in November 2020, the South African Police Services, SABS, discovered in Johannesburg 2,400 counterfeit doses of COVID-19 vaccine. And that was in November. That came from China. And just a month ago, a fake pharmaceutical lab with close to $1 million of products was discovered in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. So we just see that it's a very common, almost disease that is affecting our everyday life.
All right, let's talk more about that economic impact. I know you spoke about it a little bit earlier on and the extent of it, but let's talk on the continent. Can you give us some insight into the impact of this fake goods trade on the economies of various countries on our continent?
Yeah, for sure. So, and as you mentioned as well, I think the first victim of counterfeiting is actually the government, who loses out on tax revenues, because obviously counterfeited products are never taxed, as they're not accounted for in our economies. Counterfeiting bypasses the official supply chains and actually eventually erodes trust in the marketplace and incurs in the end, high healthcare costs to governments, because they will then have to try and heal the people that have been using, especially fake medicine. In terms of numbers, we can easily say that African governments are losing in total a minimum of $100 billion a year on estimated revenues due to counterfeiting. So that's just for governments. Then other victims of this counterfeiting are obviously the brands themselves, who are losing revenue as somebody else is selling their product, and they're often losing credibility towards the consumer. And finally, I think the biggest loser of all and the biggest victim of counterfeiting is actually the end consumer, because many of these products, as we mentioned, medicine, baby formula, cigarettes, although smoking is not healthy, but a lot of these products are endangering their health, and some of them can be lethal.
Yeah, so Patrick,
there's a big...
Yeah.
Yeah.
My apologies for interrupting. You can finish.
No problem. No problem. Go ahead.
No, so when you're talking about consumers and losing out, I know that one of the anecdotal things about buying fake goods is that if somebody wants a fresh pair of new sneakers, they can't afford it at this shop. They know they can get it from around the corner, on a boutique on Instagram, in a shop on the street for much less than they would have with the kind of same social capital that the person who's getting the proper product does. A lot of times people are using that kind of logic to buy things, one. So what did you say to somebody who was watching, who was like, I just want to get stuff cheaper? And why should people care about getting and verifying, like you do with Original, that their things are original?
Yeah, so I think especially when we look at, as you mentioned, like fake bags and fake shoes, you would first think that you're not harming anybody and that you're getting cheaper deal, because often people that do buy these fake products know consciously well that they are buying fake products. But the problem with this is that counterfeit is funding terrorist organizations and criminal organizations. There has been some studies that have come out that show some direct links between the bombing on the trains in Spain in 2004 and the attack on the newspaper in France of Charlie Hebdo, that most of the funds came from counterfeited goods. So I think the problem is when you are buying that, you're actually funding somebody who might try to kill you or, well, try and bomb somebody later on in the day. So I think that's where really it becomes a real problem. And again, I think it's the consumer needs to take that ownership and really try and make sure that he's buying real stuff. Because other problems is most of these fake shoes and fake bags that you find are done by children. So you're actually promoting child labor. So I think there's all these other aspects that need to be taken into account when we look at counterfeiting and buying these fake goods.
All right, talk to us about the work that you do with the African Union when it comes to countering counterfeit goods.
Yeah, so first I would like to say that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area idea is really, it's one of since the independence of African countries, it's probably one of the biggest endeavors the continent has taken to try and develop and prosper. But in terms of the journey that we've embarked with the Africa Free Trade Continental Area, obviously under the auspices of the African Union, is really to give the opportunity to every African citizen to be able, through our app, to verify the authentication of products that are sold or traded on the continent. And we really believe that in our circles that this is a historical and probably the biggest effort in the fight against counterfeiting that has ever been done on the planet. And we really would want to praise as well the Secretary General of the AFCFTA, His Excellency Wamkele Mene, to have taken on this task. We believe as well that it is going to benefit all aspects of society. As we mentioned before, governments will be able to get a lot of tax revenues that they do need, especially in this crisis. It'll benefit brands who will be able to sell more, and it'll benefit the consumer who will be able to know what he's consuming. And the idea would be that once a consumer takes a picture of the product that he's about to consume, if it's fake, it'll send immediately an alert to law enforcement agencies who will then be able to investigate and see where this counterfeited or illicitly traded item has come from. So, and it's just going to be beneficial because we really are, like, when you look at the amount of deaths, and in your introduction, you mentioned quite a few numbers. It's really terrible that in this day we're getting fake baby formula and fake pharmaceutical products, which are killing hundreds of thousands of people, and that's only the official numbers.
Thank you very much. That's where we have to leave it for now. Patrick McGee from Original, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon, speaking about countering the counterfeit trade on the African continent and beyond. Let's take a look now at how African markets and currencies are performing.